When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there, good morning everybody, and welcome to Join Up Dots. Yes, it's Join Up Dots, the number one podcast. Yes, Macedonia, which I have to be honest, I actually had to look to see where it is, but it's just above Greece. We were number one this week. We were number one in Macedonia. So thank you, all you Macedonians, whoever are listening. I really appreciate it. And Denmark as well. Now, Denmark, we are getting a bit of movement in Denmark. It's all very, very exciting. And I spend more time than I should going over to iTunes and clicking on the little flags to see who's listening. And it is growing. It is growing at a rate of knots. Join Up Dots is becoming a movement, and it is swelling across the world. As was proved the other day when I had a lovely message, a beautiful message from a lady called Nicole from Mexico. Mexico City, hello, I am a Mexican. I do apologise if that's the only Mexican accent I can do. It's a kind of Speedy Gonzales. Do you remember Speedy Gonzales, that little mouse that could run really fast? Hello everybody. So Nicole Baraja, I do apologise, Nicole. I do apologise by my Mexican pronunciation. But this lovely lady contacted me on Facebook to say some very nice things. So I went back to her to say some very nice things. And then she's come back and we're now getting married. Yes, we are getting married together. We are going to make Mexican-English hybrid babies. And it's going to be absolutely amazing for us all. And we will broadcast it on Facebook Live. No, not really. But no, it's absolute delight to receive emails from people across the globe. And I never get fed up with it. I really don't. And I'm really humble and amazed when somebody from like Mexico City that I've never been to, I'd love to go to, and apparently walk around in the smog. And I would love to go to there and meet Nicole and meet the people out there, because it's what Join Up Dots I wanted at the beginning. I wanted it to be a global show, and that's why if you go over to the logo, you can see that there's a world. And it's about connections. It's about me building connections with you. It's about you connecting with me and me connecting you with people that can help you and move you along. So thank you so much, Nicole, for sending the message. And I do apologise. We probably won't be having babies together, but don't worry. If my wife ever leaves me, you're going to be first port of call, Nicole. So what we're going to be doing on today's show is going to be totally different, really. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring another host to the show. Now, just recently, I had the pleasure of being on Natural Born Coaches with Mark Mawhinney, who is the Jedi in Canada. If you go over to his pictures on Natural Born Coaches, he looks like how Luke Skywalker's getting. He's got the hair, he's got the beard, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. And he invited me on his show. And I keep on getting a lot of emails from people because they've heard me say how I do less and less with Join Up Dots and I don't come online, and asking me how I do it and my systems and stuff. Well, Mark was very interested in this, and so I told him everything of how I do things, how I set up my email, and how I literally don't really... I've got an online presence and I'm never online, which is kind of weird. Even now when I'm saying it is a little bit strange. But he had me on a show, and so I thought I would bring this show to the fore and I'd actually release it on Join Up Dots. So it's going to be a different host, but it's me. Yes, it's me on there, and I'm going to be revealing sort of behind the scenes of what Join Up Dots is and how I run it and how it's becoming very, very successful, and it's very, very exciting. And for every single one out of you out there, that, you know, you hear me say this all the time, you only have to start. You have to know where you're heading and start. And little by little, you get there. And then the belief grows. And then people start looking in your direction. And then the belief grows again. And it's a groundswell. The hardest thing is at the beginning when no one's looking in your direction. You don't know what you're doing. But as long as you know the direction that you're heading, then you have got a real head start. You know, like those ships when they suddenly realise they're going the wrong way. And so they have to sort of turn 3 degrees and take 6 miles to sort of turn round. If you know where you're heading, you're going to be slightly off track all the way until the real dream, the one that you kind of think, oh God, I can really see what I'm going to be doing. But people don't actually sit down and spend their time actually planning it out. So Nicole is going through one of my courses at the moment. And if anybody wants my 11-part video course, just drop me an email and say, yes, I want the Direction Finder. It's a series of videos that shows you how to actually find the thing that you should be doing in your life, and then it's up to you to go after it, but it gives you the direction. So Nicole is doing that. This is the Nicole Show, and I'm now going to bring on the other host, which is Mark can't even say his name, Mark Mawhinney, and he's going to interview me on his amazing show, Natural Born Coaches. So you'll see how I'm doing it, and then soon we'll be back with another one of me doing it, actually working for a living. But here we go, Natural Born Coaches. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Natural Born Coaches podcast, the place where smart coaches come to grow their businesses. Ready to take your coaching to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Mark Mawhinney.
Hi, it's Mark Mawhinney, and before we start the show, I want to tell you about something I'm really excited about. It's called Secret Coach Club, and it's not being done anywhere else in the coaching industry. You can get all the details over at secretcoachclub.com. That's secretcoachclub.com. And now, on with the show. Hey everyone, it's Mark Mawhinney, and welcome back to another episode of Natural Born Coaches. This is the podcast for your coaching business. Today's guest is actually an encore. I had him on the show years ago, feels like, and I've been on his show twice. He is the host of the super popular podcast called Join Up Dots Across the Pond, and he's also a master when it comes to podcasting. We're going to talk about some of that stuff, but he's also someone I respect and admire, one of my favorite guys out there. Pleased to have on the show, David Ralph. How are you doing, David?
I am doing fine. Other than, as I said to you just before we recorded, I've wolfed down a plate of fish fingers and chips, or French fries as you call them over there, and it's stuck in my throat. So if I start to choke and die on the show, please download it and pass it to your friends, because Mark wants it. He wants the downloads.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, David. So we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to have trouble squeezing it into 30 minutes, but why don't we begin by you telling us a little bit more about your show and then an interesting change that you made a little while back.
Yeah, my show is Join Up Dots, which it started off as a 7-day-a-week, hour-plus show every single day. And I like the ability to, if I'm going to do something, do it hell for leather and really sort of push through. And so I set off on 2014, April the 30th, 2014, to record a show a day, which I was doing. Once I got to the year 365, I said to my audience, what do you want from Join Up Dots for the next year? And they said, less of it. We can't keep up with it. And it was a real eye-opener that people were sort of really obsessive about the content. And so I sort of slowed down to 4 days a week. And it's just enjoyment now, Mark. It is a motivational show. It's free-flowing. It goes off in any direction. But it's, as you will know, it's the connections you build and the profile you build through podcasting that has sort of really set my world as it is. And it's going great guns. And because it was going great guns, I pivoted, and this is what we'll probably talk about in the show, and tried to ruin what I had, which sounds bizarre, but that's what I set out to do, and that was the pivot point where things really started going well for me.
Yeah, because you and I have chatted about this. I'm fascinated by the changes you made, because you've done, I want to be David Ralph when I grow up, because you've been able to separate yourself in a lot of ways where you're not as easily as accessible. But if people are trying to reach out to you, not in a bad way, it's just so many entrepreneurs struggle with just getting stressed out, trying to be everywhere at the same time and dealing with everybody. And you've got some really cool systems in place. What led you to that point, and what kind of changes did you make?
I think what led me to that point was when I was in corporate land, I was very much there all the time. But when I wasn't, I never had a mobile phone. I never had a tablet. And the managers used to say to me, and the directors, what happens if we need to get to you, you know, what happens if it's an emergency? And I used to say, well, there's never an emergency. And if I'm good enough to do the job, I'll make sure there's not an emergency. And that kind of mentality ran into entrepreneurial land, really. So when I set this up, I thought the last thing I want to do is be on a state of emergency all the time. And so I didn't want people to just be able to get me. I didn't want to be spending all my time on Skype calls and just connecting. I wanted to have a life. So I took that sort of bloody-minded approach that I had previously and just eased into entrepreneurial land. And it does mean that, as I say, when somebody wants me and I want to be there for them, I will be there. Absolutely. So today, I knew I was going to do this. I made sure I contacted you previously to say I will be there. I'm on time, but I'm not going to deviate for anybody. I'm not just going to go, oh yeah, can I have 10 minutes with you, David? Oh yeah, I'll just be there. It's got to be scheduled in or it's not happening at all.
Yeah, and you and I have chatted about this before, but it's so frustrating when people want to do virtual coffees or there's no reason to do it. And there's that guilt for turning them down because you feel bad, you know, well, they're nice. And you could come up with all sorts of justifications, you know, for doing it. But it's really hard to run a business if you're doing all these getting to know you virtual coffees all day long. I mean, I probably did hundreds of them in the early days and almost burnt me out.
Yeah, it's just pointless because at the end of the day, you've got to know what you're bringing to the table. It's almost like going into a board meeting where there's no agenda. And that's what these people want. They just kind of want to touch base with you, and that's not going to happen. But you've got to do it in a professional way. So I'm clearly defined on email. I'm clearly defined on social media that if you want me, you've got to justify why you want me. You know, you've got to bullet point it in an email. And more often than not, when you say that, and you go, yeah, okay, that's fine, we'll meet, but I want you to schedule it and I want you to tell me what we're going to talk first. They don't. They just want to click a button and just do it. And you just cut away all the faff, really. And at the beginning, you are a bit of a kind of money sort of vampire. Anything that comes near to you, you want to sink your teeth into it because you're sort of desperate for cash. But it's a good idea not to go that route and think to yourself, no, once I open that door to me, then I really have painted myself into a corner. And I don't think anybody takes a corporate leap just to sit in an office for 20 hours a day, not being able to escape from it. When you decide to do it, you think, oh, I'm going to have pub lunches. I'm going to be walking on the beach in the morning. And then people just tell me all the time, I'm just checking my emails. I'm just checking my emails. Mr. Mark Mulwiney's lovely wife or wife-to-be, she has to keep you under rein because you like to check your emails.
Exactly. You got her. I've actually improved a lot, but I'm still not where you're at. It's a work in progress. How hard was it when you made that change? Were there those feelings of guilt? Was it a tough transition?
No, not tough at all. I don't have any desire, and I never had any desire. I used to go off on vacation when I was in a corporate gig, and I used to come back and I used to look at my emails and there'd be like 600 for those 2 weeks away. And I used to talk to people and I used to say, oh, I've done nothing but go through my emails. So what I used to do, I used to come back and I used to leave it for 2 days, and if nobody had come across to tell me what was so important about that email, I would delete the lot. And it just saved me hours of work, and it never caused me any issues because if it's really important, people will tell you, and if it's not important, then it can just sort of float and you find it out anyway. So no guilt at all, Mark.
Yeah, things have a way of working themselves out. People think it's an emergency and, I have to get a hold of David today and it's going to be the end of the world if not. And then things work out sometimes if you leave them be. And I can actually speak from personal experience. This isn't just, sometimes people say things like, oh, this is how you do it, but then they do it the complete opposite way with their business. I know with you, David, that you stick to that because when my brother started his podcasting business several years ago, I said to him, I was one of those annoying people, touch base with David, Ralph here, he's great, and all this stuff. So Matt reached out to you and you said, send me an email to here with 3 things you want to talk about. And Matt said, geez, what a dink. No, I'm just joking. He didn't say that.
He was right. He was right.
But that means you're actually living this. You're not just preaching it. And then I believe I've emailed you before and you had an autoresponder or something, which basically said, I don't check emails for 2 weeks, or something like that. So you're actually sticking with it. You're not just preaching and then doing something differently.
Yeah, no. And that email thing, when I changed it, first of all, it was a week, and then I went for 2 weeks, and then I'm thinking of doing 3 weeks. And now people know that they don't send me anything. It's got less and less and less. I would say the biggest way to clear out your email inbox is to say to people that you won't check it for 3 weeks or a month, because people will only send you an email when it's really, really important. You know, it's something that they need to know instead of these 1 or 2 liners. So yeah, that was a game changer, going from the 1 to 2 and 3 weeks. I might even take it to a month and see what happens, because it's a podcast, for God's sake. There's nothing life changing. I'm not going to have to help people land a plane or something. They don't need to get me instantly.
You're not negotiating Brexit or something like that, as far as I know.
I wouldn't get involved in that kind of thing, Mark. That's for adults and professionals.
Let me ask you a question, because I get the email thing. You could set up an autoresponder, but how do you deal with Facebook Messenger? Because I get a lot of messages on Facebook, and I find that there's that expectation of a faster response compared to email.
Yeah, I don't look at that either, really, because one of the things I use this thing called Franz that sits on my desktop, Franz. And one of the things I found was Facebook is very useful for messaging, but you get caught up in looking at people's pictures of their cats and their kids and all that kind of stuff, and you're in there for like an hour or whatever. Yes. So I have Franz, which just has the messenger part, and it also, you can link it up to Gmail, you link it up to LinkedIn, you link it up to all your sort of social media, and it just sits there. So I used to think to myself, I better check LinkedIn and go onto LinkedIn, and I better check this, but now I can just glance at Friends and it tells me within a second if there's anything, and all the pictures are there, and I scroll down it and I look at people and I can read them without them seeing that I've read them, which is good as well. And
that's nice.
Yeah, and I can just sort of scroll up and down, and there's a little Chrome app which is great if people want to use this. It's called Unseen, and it's a little icon that sits up in your right hand corner, and so you can, once again, you can go into Facebook, see the messages, but you don't actually have to let them know that you've read them, and then you can respond when you want at a later stage. That's a good sort of productivity tip as well.
I actually recently downloaded a Chrome extension called Newsfeed Eradicator for Facebook for Chrome. And Newsfeed Eradicator is great. It sounds like it's similar to Franz, where when you go in, you can still see your notifications and check your messages, but your newsfeed is completely gone, and there's a motivational quote. It's usually one about productivity there, which gives you a kick in the butt, but you can't see your newsfeed at all. My problem is my phone, of course, the app always has that newsfeed, so if I'm on the go, I have to be careful not to get sucked into there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, one of the best ones as well is Stay Focused. It's focused without an E on the end, so it's like SD at the end. And that's a little Chrome app, and you program the internet for how long you will be on a website. You know, I love looking at the soccer scores, and I had to set it up so that it would only allow me 10 minutes a day to do that, and then it closes it off. And it's a bit annoying, because when you start off, you think, I'm going to be really good, I'm really good. I just do it for 5 minutes, and then you think, no, that's a bit stupid, actually. I need a little bit longer than that. But that's a really good way of setting it up as well, so it just closes things off so that you're not getting sucked into being in your office for 10 hours but actually only working for 2 of it, and you're on Facebook and social media and stuff for the rest of it.
So I got to ask you, David, you've killed it with Join Up Dots. I mean, that was a huge show when I first went on it a few years ago, and now it's grown even bigger. And you've helped a lot of other podcasters, too. You've got Podcasters Mastery and doing a lot in that world. What can you tell us about mastering iTunes and being the top podcaster in the world in under 15 minutes?
Well, in under 15 minutes, the beauty of iTunes, and this is the big game changer. When I started podcasting, I was tweeting out, and I was Facebooking out, and I was promoting on LinkedIn. I was doing everything, and it literally killed me. And I was going 7 days a week, so every day I was sending this out and sending that out. And after about a year and a half, I started to think, this isn't fun. This isn't fun. I love the podcasting bit. I love building connections. I love people coming through to me, customers, whatever. But actually all the rest of it, it's just a killer. And it dawned on me suddenly, Mark, that I thought to myself, with 560 million active users on iTunes, why am I not programming iTunes so that they come to me? And it was a real, hang on, I'm not sure you can even do this. Can you program iTunes? And so I started looking at it, and I thought to myself, I reckon I'll be able to do something clever here. So I set myself up for 2 years that I was going to literally stop earning any income from Join Up Dots, because I wanted to take my audience down to nothing so I could see, without doing anything on it at all, who's coming to my show, and then start building it up. And I was doing certain things. And it went up to, and I don't really talk about downloads now, funnily enough, because to me, they're not important anymore. It's more, I would rather have one customer come to me that turns into a proper customer than 100,000 listeners every day and you don't get anything from them. But on the sort of benchmarking of it, by doing these certain things, I got up to 25,000 a day listeners to Join Up Dots, or so I thought. But that was Facebook, that was Twitter, that was LinkedIn, that was all these different things. And once I stopped doing that, it just dwindled down to nothing. It's dwindled down to about 1,500 or something like that. But now I'm not doing anything at all, and my audience is going up and up and up, and it's all purely from iTunes. Being on iTunes and optimizing it for your show, and so that you have got total visibility, I think, is the key thing. And the thing that people make a big mistake on is that they don't optimize it. It's keyword heavy, no matter what anyone says, because I test it on a daily basis. It's keyword heavy. And so what I mean by that, Mark, is somebody out there who thinks, oh, I'm going to be a podcaster. They buy the equipment, they set it all up, they go for it, and then they find after about 30, 40 episodes, oh, this is a killer. I'm not getting anywhere. If they start right at the very beginning and they set the whole system up, just by producing more and more content, it's like a balloon that is every time getting blown up a little bit more. So it's floppy at the beginning, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and it starts to rise up, and all your shows will gain traffic. Now, I'm on a bit of a rant here, but you gave me 15 minutes. The thing that I realized as well was that the majority of podcasters have a certain amount of shows that are almost dead, that they don't get any listens to. And I started to think, well, this is lunacy. I've got all this content out there, but I should be getting listeners to this, because this is potential customers as well. And so that's what I did again. I went through everything, all the old shows that used to get maybe 1 or 2 listens a day, and actually see if I could get 10 listens a day. Well, it doesn't sound much, but I've got 700, 800 shows. So that's coming up. Yeah, 8,000, 9,000 a day. And once you get that, it really is a big groundswell. So, and I don't have to do anything else as well. I just record the show and go and sit down the pub. It's very, very nice, but it took a long while to do it. And so I literally cut off my income streams instantly, and I had to do something to replace those while I gave myself this 2 years to really find out how it all works.
Right. So when speaking of income streams, I know you've got a number of programs, products, and then you also have coaching. You're doing mindset coaching and a few other things. Can you talk about how you monetize your podcast?
Yeah, the Join Up Dots actually isn't monetized that much as of the show. Now, I could put adverts on there, but I didn't want to do that because I was trying to break the audience. I wanted it to go down and then up, and so I couldn't ever say to an advertiser or a sponsor, you know, a fixed amount of downloads. So that wasn't ever an option. So what I decided to do was create another product called Podcasters Mastery that taught podcasting. But it was, looking back on it, it was very naive. It was literally teaching people how to podcast. And I now see that what people want to know is not how to podcast, but how to podcast fast, efficiently, that they get maximum benefit and it doesn't take over their life. So we have structured the whole thing, and we're relaunching it again probably early September, where literally in the first week we teach them how to structure their show. Second week we teach them how to actually plan and develop it and make sure that the titles are right so they get big bang for their money. Third week is the recording and the editing process, and I record and edit live. So after a show, which is why I didn't go with your brother, Mark, it only takes me about 19 seconds to sort of get a show out, really, and it's all finished. Then on the fourth week, it's the big masterclass that brings in all the 3 weeks together, and we sort of do that. So that's Podcasters Mastery, which is sort of the big money maker. What I like about it as well is that I do just 1 month. I do 1 month and then I close it off. And then people have to sort of actually schedule, because I didn't want it all the time. So I just do 1 month. Knock me out, guys. Really rip me to part. You know, you get me 120%. Then goodbye, everybody. You're not going to get me for another month. And then I do another one. So I do about 6 a year.
So how many hours a week are you working when you're working?
When I'm working, not a lot actually, because I've got all the content on the videos, so that's all there. I allow people to post into the Facebook group asking me questions. So I normally go up there about 5 o'clock at night, read the questions and record videos and post them directly into Facebook. So that sort of answers them, and it's sort of very interactive. And over a period of time, you start to realize what questions people are going to ask. So then the videos in the actual content got better, and so I don't get as many questions. So I would say on the weeks that I'm actually really working, I probably do, I would say 14 hours a week, something like that.
See, I thought you were going to say 14 hours a day. I'm like, oh, that's not bad. And then
No, about 14 hours a week, so not a lot. And then on the months that I'm not working, I do Join Up Dots 3 days, which is 3 Thursdays, and that's it really. So I don't work a lot. I like the ability to, as I say, enjoy myself. So I might be in my office, I might be creatively recording videos, I might be doing things, but I don't think that's work. That's me enjoying myself. I always think work is when I go, right, I've got to be there. I've got to be there, you know, we can't go away for the afternoon. I've got to do this today. And everything else, if somebody says to me, oh, do you fancy doing this? I go, yeah, I'll do that in the morning, and then I'll come out with you in the afternoon, or vice versa. So I don't do a lot of work. It's very flexible with my time.
Oh, nice. So what do you see as the biggest mistake the podcasters are making nowadays?
I think the number one mistake is that they don't know themselves. And I see this time and time again. And you made the mistake. I made the mistake. When I set off, I was doing an hour a day and I was thinking, okay, that's easy. I can do that. But then you don't realize all the stuff behind the scenes that it takes, you know, the upskilling. And it is a grind. So I always say to people, you know, you've really got to know yourself. You've got to know how much time your family takes up, how much time you've actually got to put into this. And if you're unsure about anything, go an episode a week, and then once you get into it and you get a bit better, go 2 episodes a week, but build it up. But people always go 15 episodes a week and then, oh my god, and then they stop. So I always think just start small, enjoy it, get better at it, and then see how quickly you can go. But don't just go hell for leather, because you're just going to burn yourself out. And you burnt yourself out, and I burnt myself out. We've come strong through the process, really. Wouldn't you say, Mark?
Right. Well, I think what I realized was just because others say that you should be doing daily, it worked great for me. Don't get me wrong. The first 300 episodes for Natural Born Coaches was daily, but it wasn't serving my business anymore, not the way I wanted it to. And it was becoming very, very stressful. I was just spending all my time recording podcast episodes. And then I got busier with clients. I'm like, what do I do here? Do I focus on the clients, or do I keep churning out a podcast a day? And now it's at a weekly frequency, which is much better. So in some ways, I'm grateful that I did that daily one. It definitely got the momentum going, but I don't know if I would do it again, because I wasn't getting 7 times the benefit doing 7 shows a week compared to 1 show a week now. So in my mind, that's not a good return of investment. It works for some people. John Lee Dumas and others for daily can work for them, but just didn't work for me in my model. And I think you got to let it fit whatever your goals are.
Yeah, and I think my goals really, when I started, it was money. Without a doubt, I wanted to replace my income that I had before. Then it was global domination. I really wanted a show that would, people would just come to it. And I'm past all that now. Now it's just freedom of time, really. And I just love the fact that I've got a show that people listen to. Fortunately, it is a successful show, which is great. But I'm not pressurized now. If it stays where it is for the rest of its life, then that's fine. I don't care. And I think my mindset has changed. I've been on that journey of discovery, and I've realized that the ability to just say to my kids, come on, let's watch a film, and just turn the TV on and just do stuff that I want to, is more important than all the money and the adulation. What I would like to do, Mark, I'd like to do a bit more of coming out of the shadows. And people have kept on asking me, oh, come and do this public speaking and do this, because I used to do that all the time. And when I did this, I kind of ran away from that. It was like, no, I don't want to do that. I spent years doing that. I spent years getting up in front of people and doing these kind of presentations. But now I'm kind of ready to get back onto that. But I would only do it maybe once a month, or maybe once every 2 months. I hear stories where people are doing it every weekend, and I think there's no point. It's just no point. Let them come to me.
Right. So I'm going to ask you to get your crystal ball out here for podcasting. But you hear lots of things, people saying, oh, podcasting's dying. Then you see other people saying podcasting's taken over the world. It's becoming super popular. Where do you see the future of podcasting going?
I don't think it matters. I think it's for the individual. And I've been thinking about this a lot because, you know, if I created a podcast, say I was a real estate agent and I create a podcast and I get 4 people listening to it, and out of that I sell 2 houses, then for me, it's the greatest thing known to man. Now, I don't care about what you're doing, Mark, as such. I don't care about what anybody else is doing. It's just for myself. And I think with podcasting, it's pure marketing. That's all it is. I don't think, you know, it's anything more of an art form than a kind of never-ending webinar. You're hearing Mark's voice, you're hearing my voice over a period of time. You start to believe us, you start to trust us, then you might drop us an email, we converse with you back and forth. That's how I see it all builds up. So I don't think it matters if people are saying it's going up 5% a month, if people are saying it's going down, because I don't care what anybody else is doing. I hope that don't sound arrogant. All I care about is what I'm doing and what I'm providing to the world. So it's almost like I'm in a cave on my own and the world doesn't exist. I just don't give a monkey's about it.
At all. I think that's smart.
I had an invite to go to some conference. I can't remember it was. And then I got an email afterwards saying, oh, we'd like you to be on the round table to discuss the future of podcasting. And I actually thought, I don't care. I really don't care about the future of podcasting. I just couldn't imagine sitting around a table going, you know, oh, yeah, I imagine that if we do this and we do that. I just thought to myself, I think people are missing the point. It's just marketing. It's a way of building up connection, trust and loyalty with somebody across the world. End of story. Yeah. I don't see it any more than that.
And if there wasn't podcasting, there'd be something else, you know, so kind of like Facebook Live may not be around, or Facebook might not be around in 10 years, but there's going to be something in its place.
Yeah, it's just a way of connecting. 20 years ago, we would go into sort of a conference and we'd hand out business cards. 10 years ago, we'd be doing something a bit more virtual. It's just leading to that point where we sit in our offices and we connect across the world. And it's nothing more than that. I suppose what it's doing is replacing a telephone. Really. 15 years ago, you'd be in your office and the phone would be ringing off the hook and you'd be picking it up. Now we've got far more control in our life. And certainly I use it as that marketing. Nothing more, nothing less. But marketing with sort of entertainment. I like my show to be entertaining. I like people to say, oh, I really enjoyed it. I laughed and I cried or whatever. So it's a kind of inspiration, education kind of show, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, what I like with your show is it's very unscripted, it's casual, it's like just 2 people having a drink and chatting about business, life, and other stuff there. And I love that format, and I just want to mention that to you because that's something that I've mentioned your name to other people when they try to do scripted shows. I just say, just listen to David's show and see how it's done.
It's a lot better, I think, because I could never sit here and write a question which is as good as what just pops into my head. I could never. But I do hear it all the time when people have these scripted questions, and some of them ask the same questions every single time. And I just think, oh, you're missing a trick, because Mark's going to say something that he hasn't said on any other podcast, and that is the gold. And if you can get maybe 2 or 3 bits of gold on every show, certainly I think to myself, I've had 800 business coaches. Every time I sit and do an interview with somebody, they say something and I think, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, I should bring that into my life. You know, if I was asking the same questions all the time, I'd miss out on that opportunity. It just seems madness to me.
Exactly. So any parting words of wisdom here, David, for the audience?
Yeah, I think one of the things I would say is don't be too precious about what you're creating, because it will find its thing. I set off, as I say, like it was going to change the world, and it's not going to change the world, and I can see it now, but as long as it changes your life, that's good enough. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be hugely polished. It doesn't have to be on the same path. Just to sort of jump in, when I decided that Join Up Dots wasn't going to be earning me any money, I had a little website that I just started playing around, and you can go and Google it. It's called whatsatfloridakeys.com. But I suddenly thought I could make money from this, and it wasn't part of the plan. It's still not part of the plan, but I threw it in just so that I could continue on my journey. And now that one little website pays for all my bills, all my expenses in my house. So effectively, I don't have to podcast anymore. It's just become
What's that URL
hobby.
Again, Dave?
Whatsatfloridakeys.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll
so
get that in the show notes page. But what kind of site is it?
It's all about the Florida Keys in America. It sells holidays, it sells hotels, there's A's out, all that kind of stuff. It's totally passive income, and people click on it and I just get money, and it comes through to me by AdSense and stuff. And it just gave me the green light to be creative with my life. I wasn't that precious about making this work. And I always say that to people. If you're deciding on something, keep moving towards it, but you can do any other thing. It won't look bad on you. People won't ever come out of the woodwork and go, oh, I thought you said you were going to be a podcaster. Why are you spending time doing this? It's all part of building your dream. And for me, my dream is to just podcast. I love it more than anything. I could do it all the time. So if I can do anything behind the scenes to make this possible, then I'm going to do it. And that, I think, would be my advice, Mark.
I like it. So, David, if people want to check you out online, where would they go?
I haven't had somebody wanting to check me out for years, but you can go to, well, basically Google. If you go to Google, joinupdots.com, we're having a new website built at the moment, so it's a little bit sort of in the middle of where it should be. But come across there, or you can come to iTunes and find me as well.
Yeah, so single women, if you want to propose to David, you can send the mail here and we'll get it over to him, and then you can get the pick of the litter there, David.
Yeah, and married women and men, I don't mind. I'm at that age, Mark, that I can't be fussy.
I just got done listening to a Robert Downey Jr. biography, the audiobook, and it was talking about the amount of mail that he received while he was in jail, going through his depths of hell, you know, at lowest point ever. He was still getting tons of women sending mail to him, and that's a lesson, I guess.
Well, it is weird, and I always think about these people on death row, and they got no prospects at all, and these women are like, falling at them. And I always think, can you imagine what the ex-boyfriend must feel like? The ex-boyfriend who's got more prospects than this person on death row, but she doesn't see him in the same way. That must be bad, mustn't it?
I would think so. That would hit the ego. So, David, thanks for doing this. I appreciate you coming back on the show. We'll have to have you on again, and good luck with everything. But I love your journey. I love the changes that you've made, and I hope that people learn something from this.
Absolute delight, Mark. Thanks for having me.
So we've had David Ralph back on the show today. Go check out Join Up Dots. And if you have to make some changes in your business, the big takeaway I took from this is don't be afraid to make those changes. David did it. I'm making some. I got a ways to go, but you can certainly do it as well. So I hope you get some inspiration from here. I'm Mark Mawhinney, and I will see you on the next Natural Born Coaches.
Thanks for listening to the Natural Born Coaches podcast at naturalborncoaches.com. See you next time.